みんなをここまで率いてきたのは私だ。
判事さん、
そのけじめをつける。やっぱり巨人ってすまん。
In the past, a young Eren Yeager was caught napping under a tree when he heard short-haired Mikasa Ackerman promise to meet him later. Shortly thereafter, he awoke, as if emerging from a dream, and Mikasa reminded him that they should return home after collecting firewood. Although he had no recollection of the dream, Mikasa noticed that he was in tears. In present-day Marley, Ramsey shows Halil his hidden stash of coins, indicating his plan to stash money until the sack is full. Consequently, this would be sufficient for everyone in their refugee camp to live somewhere better. Nevertheless, Halil is apprehensive about the potential consequences if Ramsey is caught. After all, Ramsey has already lost his right hand, and he could lose his left as well. However, Ramsey remains undeterred. Despite the harsh winters that claim lives of refugees every year, he still wants Halil to distribute the money to everyone in case of his demise. Upon hearing approaching footsteps, the two boys hastily conceal their money. To their surprise, the individuals are Marleyans, who appear to be escaping the city. Shortly after, a tremor shakes the ground beneath them as the Wall Titans advance towards the eastern port city. Previously, during Eren's first visit to Liberio, he had already foreseen that he would eventually have to kill the inhabitants of the city, and that it was his fate to do so. He believed it would be because there was no other solution to save Paradis Island, resulting in the complete destruction of Liberio and all that resided within it. As he contemplates this inevitable outcome, Eren wonders what his mother would make of it all, and questions whether it would be better for Eldians to die, as the King of the Walls had intended. Despite the potential for a smaller death toll if the Eldians were to sacrifice themselves to solve the Titan issue, Eren cannot bring himself to accept such a bleak ending. Just then, as he listens intently, he hears a scuffle in an alley. Suddenly, he realizes that this group of thugs is beating up a boy, an event he has already witnessed in his memories of the future. The thugs insist that he should mind his own business, and at first, he acquiesces. However, despite his knowledge that he will eventually kill the boy, his natural inclination is to save him. Although he feels like a hypocrite, he rescues Ramsey and comes to the conclusion that the future cannot be altered. Ramsey expresses his gratitude, but Eren apologizes through tears, admitting that the world outside the walls is not what he had dreamed of, and that he wanted to erase everything. Upon returning to the present, Ramsey and Halil are urgently summoned by their family as the Titans approach. The refugees' intended escape route has been blocked by the Wall Titans, causing them to backtrack to the city. Amidst the commotion, Ramsey's belongings spill out of his sack, prompting Halil to go back for the money. Despite Ramsey's attempt to rescue him, the two boys become trapped in the Titan's path, and Halil succumbs to flying debris while Ramsey is crushed to death. In the prison, Yeager and his wife sense the shaking and realize that something terrible has happened. Despite Yeager's calls for help, no one responds, and his wife fears that it is Judgment Day. Meanwhile, as Eren leads the Wall Titans on their march, he reflects on the walls that have always been present in his life. Armin Arlelt used to regale him with tales of exotic lands beyond the walls, and Eren would imagine that those who saw them would be the most liberated people in the world. But now that he has reached that vantage point, it is strewn with the corpses of those crushed by the Titans. Undeterred, his inner child turns to ask Armin if he agrees with him. Subsequently, Armin finds himself in the pats with the child Eren. However, he snaps out of it and returns to the ship heading to Marley. There, Annie Leonhardt inquires about his wounds and invites him to sit next to her. Expressing her gratitude, she thanks Armin for being there for her during her confinement. Although she is confused as to why he chose to spend time with her. He looks away and blushes, saying that he just wanted to see her. Despite Annie pressing him for a more concrete reason, Armin is confused and surprised. However, when he sees Annie blushing as well, he breaks off. Uncertain of why she's having these thoughts, Annie acknowledges the ongoing deaths of thousands, if not millions, of people. In Annie's conclusion, she believes that he only talked to her because he's a good person. Armin reminds her that he hates being called a good person due to the fact that he has killed so many people. Despite this, he still stops Annie as she gets up to leave. Despite the realization that the outside world is different than he and Eren expected, he still reminisces about their childhood dreams of exploration. Nevertheless, he holds on to hope that there are undiscovered secrets. Upon arrival in Odiha, the group discovers it has been deserted before the Titans' arrival. While preparing the flying boat, Armin proposes that they should bring along the explosives previously attached by the Jaegerists. As the night wears on, Falco Gris awakens to the realization that Theo Magath and his family have likely perished amidst the destruction wrought by the Titans in Marley. Piek Finger attempts to offer solace, but struggles to find the right words to comfort him. Meanwhile, outside, Mikasa proposes that Annie familiarize herself with the new omnidirectional mobility gear, but Annie is apathetic towards the idea. With no intention of joining the fight to save humanity, she empathizes with the Azumabito's efforts to save their nation, but lacks the drive to continue the struggle. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. Do you like Mappa's art style or Studio Witz's? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the recap. Upon noticing Annie staring at Armin, Mikasa inquires about when this happened, but Annie remains hesitant to share. Nevertheless, Mikasa extends her empathy and assures Annie that she is not alone in her feelings. Mikasa informs Annie that Armin will be accompanying them on the flying boat to pursue Eren, which Annie already knows. Curiously, Annie probes Mikasa's intention towards Eren's life, to which Mikasa responds that she will not kill him as she is only bringing him back from his distant whereabouts. Meanwhile, despite his extensive injuries, Levi Ackerman stands up, driven by his desire to be present during the questioning of Yelena, who has recently regained consciousness after her arm was broken. As the soldiers on the ship inquire, Yelena discloses details about a fortress in southern Marley, engaged in airship research. Yelena anticipates that this is where Eren will strike next to eliminate the airship's threat. Despite Zeke's defeat, Yelena endeavors to persuade the group that Eren's actions demonstrate the necessity of the euthanasia plan. Hange Zoe concurs, having been unsuccessful in presenting an alternative path to ensure their island's security. As the combined forces get ready to depart, Piek requests Kiyomi Azumabito to accompany Falco and Gabi Braun on their ship. Kiyomi agrees but intends to confine the two children to their cabin. After sunrise, Hanji instructs the scouts to inspect their gear. However, Levi's hand trembles as he examines his grip due to his amputated fingers. Nevertheless, he insists that he only requires 2 fingers. Nearby, the warriors bid farewell to Annie. Reiner Braun expresses regret for involving her and Bertolt Hoover in their mission, while Annie admits to wanting to kill him on several occasions. However, she smiles and promises to look after Gabi and Falco. Meanwhile, the scouts wave goodbye as Annie boards the ship. Piek informs Hanji that she and Reiner want to join forces with them, as requested by Magath. Hanji is pleased, but Piek declines to ride the cart titan. Levi teases Hanji about her affection for titans, to which he asks if their comrades are observing them. Levi dislikes Hanji's newfound similarity to himself. As the Azumabitos fuel the flying boat, Flock Forster appears in the back of the hangar, shooting at the crew until Mikasa takes action. Despite her efforts, Flock manages to puncture the fuel tank, forcing the Azumabitos to patch it up as quickly as possible. However, the earth starts to rumble and they only have an hour to fix it. Sadly, Flock dies while still believing in his cause. When the group discusses their plan against the Titans, Armin offers to stay behind to slow them down, but Reiner argues that they need him for Eren. Hanji takes responsibility and decides to stay, designating Armin as the next commander of the Scout Regiment. In a lighthearted moment, they remind Armin that Levi is now his subordinate and should be worked hard. As Hanji departs, they pass by Levi, who understands their desire to leave in a dramatic fashion and simply asks them to dedicate their heart. Without hesitation, Hanji charges into battle against the Titans, buying time for the crew to refuel the plane. Despite the intense heat and the loss of her cloak, Hanji continues to fight on. Unfortunately, they are unable to fill the tank completely before the engineers urge them to start the engine due to the Titan's proximity. In the end, Hanji's valiant efforts cost her her life, but both the flying boat and the ship manage to escape. What will our heroes do next? Will the rumbling really destroy everything in its path? Find out on our next recap of Attack on Titan, the final season.